Chapter 6 Learn to Live Alone. First, I needed a comfortable bed, a table, and a chair. I was lucky enough to have tools from the ship. At first, I was not good at using them, but within a month, I became quite clever with them. I cut down trees to get wood, or used the wood from the shipwreck. It was a long and hard work, but it made my life meaningful. Besides, there was no hurry. I had all the time in the world. Every day, I went out to hunt and fish. I caught fish and turtles to eat. I always had 2 guns with me when I went out. I killed beasts and birds to get meat. I dried some of the meat and fish, or put them in salt, so that I could eat them later. I cooked some seawater in a pot, and when the water was gone as vapor, salt was left on the bottom of the pot. For the first 2 months, I did not have light at night, so I had to go to bed very early. That was very boring. Later, I put some animal fat in a small bowl to get a lamp. Then I could read the books I had gotten from the ship. Soon I made candles from animal fat. Fortunately, I had pens, paper, and ink from the ship, so I could write down what I did. Once, I caught a she-goat and her baby goat. I did not kill them, but kept them inside my fence. Soon, I had milk for the first time since I left Brazil. Later, I built a sheep pen and kept more goats in it. In this way, I had plenty of milk and meat. I made clothes and beddings from goat skin and fur. I had a bag of corn from the ship. I did not eat all of it, but planted some as seeds in a field. I had to make a fence around my field so the animals could not get in to eat all of my crops. Several months later, I harvested a few bags of corn. I tried to make bread from the corn, but it was not an easy job. Several days after I had harvested the corn, I cooked the first loaf of bread on the island. One day, I went out to visit the other parts of the island. I found some wild fruit trees, and I collected 2 bags of fruit. I could not eat them all, so I put some in the sun to dry, that I could eat them later. I also made some fruit jam, and so, for the first time, I had sweetened food. Sometimes I found bird eggs in bushes or in trees. One day, it occurred to me that I should hatch some eggs. I collected some hen's eggs and kept them in a warm place. Soon, most of the eggs hatched, and I had some chicks. I kept them in the yard. I cut off some of their feathers so that they could not fly out of the yard. Within a year, I was able to enjoy eggs and chicken without having to hunt. Sometimes it rained for days, and I had to stay at home. But I had plenty of bread, fresh meat, salted or dried meat, fish, eggs, and milk to eat. I could read my books or write my diary. I also would do some housework, such as baking bread or mending clothes. Rainy days were the most boring time for me. One year, I got sick for a period of time. I had to stay in bed for days, and I felt very lonely. How I wished I had a person to talk with, or even a pet. Later, I caught a little wild dog, and I tied her to a tree in the yard. I left her very hungry, and then gave her a little food to eat every day. Gradually, she became very obedient and loyal to me. The dog was then my good company. 1.5 years later, she left home and stayed away for several days. Several months later, she had 2 baby dogs. In later years, the dogs made my life less lonely. The island was not a small one, but in the first year, I did not go far. Later, I decided to go around the island. I went along a small river and found several interesting places. While I was away from home, I had to stay in trees during the night. I got to the other side of the island and found it was a better place than where I lived. I spent 2 years building a new home in a better place for myself. I then had 2 homes on the island. I had lived alone on the island for several years. The island was now my home, not my prison. But I never stopped thinking about escaping. I decided to build a canoe. I cut down a tree and worked on the tree trunk for several months to make a good canoe. Then I found it was too heavy. I could not move it to the water at all. I thought of digging a small river from the canoe to the beach. But then I found I would have to dig for many years, so I gave up. I thought I was very stupid and felt very annoyed for quite a long time. Later, I built a smaller canoe, which I often used to fish with. I did not want to escape in it because it was too small to survive a storm. I made myself busy from morning till night. I worked hard in the house and in the field so that I had everything I needed for life. I had bread, meat, fish, milk, and eggs, as well as the clothes made from goat skin. Although my clothes looked strange, they kept me dry from the rain. Every year, I visited different parts of the island and the two smaller islands. So nearly 20 years passed by like this.